Immediately. And the ones who are sitting behind can feel free to come forward. Excuse me, people at the door, can you please move in? All right, settle down, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Deepak Mohapatra. I am the Senior Officer, Business and Market Development at the Alliance for Rural Electrification. Today, I have the honor to start the session after lunch, which is usually not the fun session, but I hope that you all have had lunch, so we are energetic, and none of us are going to sleep. So, welcome to the session, Ensuring Sustainable Energy Infrastructure Through Standards for High-Quality Technologies, Power Components, and Manufacturing. The session format goes like I will do the quick, let's say, set the scene presentation, followed by we will have 5 different experts with different field of expertise who will be coming and sharing with us their insights and their expertise on the subject matter. Speaking of which, may I kindly invite all the speakers on stage, starting with Ms. Hauwa Abdullahi Kassim, Africa Regional Manager, International Hydropower Association. Next in line, I have Mr. Obina Uche, Sales Director, Schneider Electric, Nigeria. Third in line, I have Mr. Olufemi Akinyelur. I'm sorry for my poor pronunciation, but he's the Head of Project Management, Unit Nigeria Electrification Project, REA Nigeria. Welcome, welcome. Okay, next I have Mr. Chris Longbottom, CEO, Mobile Power. Last but not the least, may I invite Mr. Alistair Munro from Rice Energy. People in the back and people who are still coming in are invited to kindly move in so that we can start the session, please. All right, so ensuring sustainable energy infrastructure through standards for high-quality technologies, power components, and manufacturing. Ensuring sustainable energy infrastructure in developing countries through standards for high-quality technologies, power components, and manufacturing is super critical for the success of decentralized renewable energy solutions. Often during this discussion, I will use the terminology or the acronym DRE, which stands for Decentralized Renewable Energy. So please bear with me if I shorten it down to save more time and ask the speakers for more insights. By establishing and enforcing rigorous standards, these regions, meaning the different regions of the world, Sub-Saharan Africa, where Asia Pacific, as well as Latin America and Caribbean, where DRE is super pivotal in ensuring energy access and energy transition. These regions can foster the deployment of reliable and efficient renewable energy systems, such as solar home systems, mini-grids, and small-scale wind turbines, followed by all different type of technologies that are available within the renewable energy value chain. High-quality components and robust manufacturing processes ensure longevity and optimal performance, reducing the maintenance costs and improving energy access in all different remote and difficult regions. Moreover, standardized technologies facilitate scalability, interoperability, and enable widespread adoption and integration of such technologies into existing energy frameworks, thus supporting the sustainable development and economic growth. We are here to talk about how, by ensuring sustainable energy infrastructure through proper standards and high-quality technologies, meaning quality assurance, can ensure the energy access and energy transition in the most impeccable way to the largest extent possible. I would like to also quote a couple of ongoing initiatives that are going on. I'm sure during this discussion, many would quote such examples. For example, Lighting Africa program. Then there are Africa Renewable Energy Initiative, ARI. Then there is Africa Clean Energy Program. I'm happy to also note that Alliance for Rural Electrification, we are also working with GIZ's Star C initiative in order to facilitate certification and standardization of coursework in universities in different developing countries, so that we can create a matchmaking between the industry modules, the industry requirements and the university modules, so that the students will be empowered already at the level of their graduation to be able to be hired by the local companies, which will then help in skill development, capacity building, and in long-term sustainability of the projects, which often do not see the light of the day after a couple of years when they are established. In addition to that, there is also another program called Renewable Energy Performance Platform, REP, which supports small and medium-sized renewable energy projects in sub-Saharan Africa, providing financing and technical assistance. These initiatives play a pivotal role in advancing the deployment of decentralized renewable energy solutions in Africa and beyond, ensuring that they are built on a good foundation of quality and sustainability. With that, I would like to begin the expert introduction, as well as asking like a pressing question, which will then compel our guest speakers today to talk about not only their work that they are doing, as well as their inputs and insights on the topic and how we can go forward with that. I would like to start, of course, ladies first. I would like to start with Ms. Hauwa Abdullahi Kassim, representing International Hydropower Association. Hauwa, how do standards for hydropower technologies contribute to the long-term sustainability and efficiency of hydropower projects in Africa?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As Deepak said, I'm Hauwa Abdullahi Kassim. I'm currently the Africa Regional Manager for IHA, and IHA is the global voice for hydropower. So before I talk about the standard, I also wanted, it's pivotal that we talk about the hydropower potential in Africa. We currently have over 40 gigawatts of hydro, and also for new capacity, we have 1,860 gigawatts. And for the major countries in Africa, such as Ethiopia, Cameroon, and Mozambique, they're doing so well on hydropower. And sadly, even though we are Nigerians, Nigeria is not part of the top 5 countries. And now back to your question on the standard. The standard is by the Hydropower Sustainability Alliance, which is a body of the IHA that I represent. And the standard is a guideline and accreditation scheme that provides strict requirements to make sure that all hydropower projects are developed in a just, equitable, and responsible manner. And it has really 4 objectives, which is 1, healthy ecosystems, prosperous communities, resilient infrastructure, and good governance. And the standard also is by a body, like a group of people, not just the hydropower association. We have industry players such as Voight, and also financial organizations such as the World Bank, and then civil society and the NGOs. And basically what the standard does, it's good to identify gaps for all hydro projects, and also how to mitigate climate change issues. So for the standard, it's something that I was lucky to be part of the training last year in Indonesia. And we are trying to advocate for the standard that all hydropower projects should adopt the standard for sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hauwa. That was pretty insightful contribution to the first question. I'm happy to also note that standards in novel technologies like hydropower would do a lot of good for the sector by standardizing let's say, the type, the range, and the type of instruments and equipments to be used for the setting up of the projects, as well as the community engagement in that
Yeah.
would play a heavy, let's say, a pivotal role, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I would like to move to the next speaker, Mr. Alistair Munro from Rice Energy. Alistair, can you kindly present your business and what is important in terms of quality standards and quality of power components from a small wind or hybrid power developer perspective?
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, Rise Energy is a manufacturer of small wind turbines with more than 180,000 units supplied to date. We have 3 manufacturing units currently, one in the United States, one in the United Kingdom, one in Spain. And as part of our strategy, we are deploying manufacturing and transferring technology. Currently, we're looking at 2 more manufacturing units, one in the Middle East, covering Middle East and Africa initially, and one in India for the domestic market in the Indian continent. Standardization is very important when you're transferring technology across multiple markets, and we have Schneider here, who's one of our suppliers. Within the wind turbine sector, you have a combination of components which are purchased from quality suppliers such as Schneider. You've got fabricated or foundry components. You've got composite materials. Then you have the detailed engineering that goes with them. And of course, the testing and certification of the products to IEC 61400-2 standard, which is all very good and well. It just means that sometimes innovation is a little bit stifled when you've got so many standards to comply to. But what we're trying to do is to be able to take a technology, standardize it, put it into the global market, but localize the manufacturing of that, which means that the definition of those standards is a very important part of the technology transfer. And localization is definitely the way that this has to go as a business. We're not just looking at this from a profitability point of view, we're looking at this from a localization, service point of view, ensuring the reliability of the products are at the highest standard, and that's a quality-driven process. So we have our IEC standard for the design of our systems, and then we have our ISO 9001 manufacturing processes certified, and we take that as a template, and no matter which market we move into, we want to use those templates and those certified technologies within that market. In addition, of course, you've got a variable resource in the nature of wind. So we have to look at how do we actually get the maximum energy to be generated. So within the wind industry sector, we also have the classification of the wind resource. So class 1, 2 would be your northern hemisphere or very extreme southern hemisphere areas. Class 3 would be medium wind speed. Class 4 wind speed would be very low. And there you're having to adapt your swept area of your wind turbines or your turbines so you can maximize the amount of productivity. So in summary, what you've got is the product certification, then you have your manufacturing process certification, but you also have all of your sub-vendors and your manufacturing processes being critical in terms of a quality product at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alistair. I think you intrigued a very important question in my head, localization versus compliance, which I will come to when we have the discussion. Thank you. Next question. Can pass to the person in the left, Mr. Chris Longbottom from Mobile Power. Chris, can you please present your business as well? And what is it important in terms of standards and power components for battery for energy storage in your case? Today, if not properly recycled, batteries can be dangerous for people's health as well as the environment. How do you ensure that recycling of components, and what are the challenges in the value chain? Multiple questions at the same time, but feel free to take and I can ask again.
Sure. I may or may not cover all of your questions.
Doesn't matter.
So apologies
to
in
remind.
I'll try and keep the energy high because after lunch, let's face it, we all kind of want a nap. And at least an engaging speaker, if I can attempt to do so, will keep you awake. So that's my guarantee of minimum service to you guys, is that I'll keep you awake. Put your hand up here if you have, if you've heard of Mopo before, put your hand up. I have, I work there. Okay, so I see a few hands. So we do operate in Nigeria. Our basic premise is that generation is difficult, and if you want to replace petrol with sunshine, you have to be very creative in your distribution of energy. So the solar generation part, fine, stick some solar panels up, but how do you distribute energy? And anyone who's spent any time, even here in Lagos, maybe a mile or a kilometer up the road, will know firsthand the challenges of energy distribution. We solve these problems by using battery swap technology, small batteries that are portable, very small ones for household and lighting, which are similar to a solar home system in what you can do with them, and larger batteries, 1 kilowatt hour, in order to be able to replace generators, better pass my neighbor generators, 1 kVA, 2 kVA, 3 kVA, 4 kVA. The problem these customers have is, I don't know how much energy I will need. I don't know how much fuel I will need to buy. So we replace the petrol with a portable, swappable battery that will enable them to meet the same as what they're doing with a petrol generator today, with no upfront cost, no purchase price, no deposit, no finance, just pay for what you use. So that's the Mopo way. In terms of standards, I think of standards in terms of, I don't know, how I think about buying a car. If I go to buy a car, I say, I want a Mercedes. I say I want a BMW. I say I want a Lexus because I know they're good quality. I don't turn up at the garage and say, sir, please can you tell me which IEC standard this car is meeting, right? Which of us think in such a way? And in fact, Alistair here touched on it because he said, Schneider is a partner, okay? So already there you have this idea that, listen, of course Schneider meet the standards. Of course they meet the standards. The standards are like the minimum. When we think about SON, when we think about IEC, we're thinking about, of course, there has to be some framework by which you assess that the standards are met. But the reason that Alistair is not buying, whatever cheap alternative there would be to Schneider is because he wants a Mercedes. And the reason that you want a Mercedes, apologies if I'm butchering this analogy, maybe it's not Mercedes, maybe you prefer to compare yourself to Lexus or Hyundai, who knows. But the reason you go for that is you know that they will exceed the standards, okay? And you know that the standards are there in order to try and enforce some kind of level of quality. But like you brought in with the ISO, the process-based standards, how do you ensure that actually your supplier is going beyond that level of quality? So we find ourselves with our own products, when we think about testing against standards and we think about IEC standards, it's very easy to pass the IEC standards, frankly. We obviously do it the best that we know how, but other people may do it easier. The question for us is, how do we go beyond that to create a product that will last for the requirement of the business? And particularly when it comes to generation, you're investing in assets for the long term. They need to last for a really long time. So we bring a lot of that in-house. We do our own testing with manufacturers because we can't always trust necessarily across 200 suppliers in our supply chain what they are saying to us. So we have to do our own verification. But of course, then the other challenge is behind the meter. As you guys know, if you've seen wiring in, in a Kedja up the road, in a local shop, the wiring is not necessarily also installed to standard. So you can't assume that the standards downstream behind the meter will be excellent. Okay, I've seen some pretty interesting wiring in my time, as I'm sure many of you here will have done. And then just to your last point, we work here with Hinkley. I don't know if any of you know Hinkley, but they export our batteries out of Nigeria, and they're in the process of working on some interesting things that you should go and talk to them about. But for our business, we have closed loop. We don't allow those products to go out into the market and just be left and dumped. We have closed loop. We bring them back and we re-export them because those minerals and those materials that have been mined should have a second life even after the battery can no longer provide useful service.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. Thanks for letting us know. And also very happy to learn that you're working with one of the exhibitors, Hinkley. So is it all, so you give all your batteries which are let's say, coming to the end of the life to this recycling facilities, or do you also recycle yourself, or do you have your own in-house facility for recycling?
There is, on the African continent, there is currently no black mass processing of battery materials. It does not exist. I hope that maybe some of you here will get together and develop such a facility. That'll be great.
That's okay.
And of course, many of these materials come further south from DRC. It would be great if we could do more of that. For now, we export to Europe, where there are refineries and smelters and plants that can deal with separating those materials back into their constituent parts.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Next, I would like to come to Mr. Obina Uche from Schneider Electric, Nigeria. Okay, Obina, what standards and quality assurance protocols does Schneider Electric follow to ensure high quality components? And how could these lessons and protocols be broadened to encompass the wider decentralized renewable energy sector, please?
Thank you very much. Schneider Electric, as we know today, a localized global company. And why do I say that? Basically because we we have a lot of partners that are present in all the countries or areas that we operate. We have factories across various countries, more than 110 countries across the globe. And in terms of standards, we comply with the global ISO standards. That's the ISO 9001 in our manufacturing processes, which is a quality manufacturing system. We work with lean manufacturing. What I mean by this is just-in-time manufacturing. And how does this help us also? Because again, you see a lot of costs coming when you have products you are storing, and then you have a lot of manpower that are utilized for, let's say, manufacturing that will not be delivered immediately. So in lean manufacturing, it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of forecasting. And this is one of the major challenges in countries like ours, in Nigeria, for instance, where we see a lot of projects come to play without planning, or let's say, I wouldn't say without planning, but most of the projects are coming in a rush. We just want to do it and deliver it almost immediately. Whereas in other climes, we see long-time project planning and scheduling, and people begin to anticipate and plan. And with those kind of forecasts, you are able to plan and do a manufacturing or planning, getting your raw materials that will help you deliver just in time. And this also applies also to logistics planning. If you do just-in-time delivery, it also helps to reduce cost. I know we'll get to that area. I just spoke about lean manufacturing. Then we have the Six Sigma, which we all know about, trying to reduce defects just to make sure you keep them at zero if possible. Where it's not possible, you follow the rules and ensure that the processes are complied to, and every department and every section of the manufacturing, including the employees, also observe the required processes. Now, we also have what we call total quality management system. So what do we mean by total quality management system? So you don't get to a particular standard and you get relaxed, or you produce a particular product and you get relaxed. So you keep improving, continuous improvement, by getting feedbacks from the customers and also from your sales, from also end users and various industrial players. So you tend to get feedback from them and you keep records. And also today at Schneider Electric, we are proud to say that most of our products are IoT enabled. And what does that do for us? It helps us to bring back data or capture data that helps us in making informed decisions with respect to the performance of our products in the market. And that helps us also, helps our research team also to improve and to also adjust or go with the trends in the market. And finally, we talk about supplier quality management. I think one of our panelists has also mentioned that. So where you source your raw materials, because at the end of the day, the product you bring out depends a lot on the raw material input. So if the quality checks are not started from your suppliers, then you're bound to run into problem. Because when the suppliers have defects in whatever raw material has been supplied to you, definitely you end up with a lot of defects in your products. I think I will stop it there.
We learned about working with the suppliers. We learned about the standards. We also learned about the feedback loop and the record keeping. I would like to also understand from you, how would you expand this in the decentralized renewable energy sector
Okay,
when
so
it comes to standardization?
looking at the centralized renewable sector here, I think we are talking about, let's say, hybrid solar systems that we use in the homes, we use in the commercial industrial areas that are not, they are isolated basically, and would not, let's say, interact with so many systems. And here, the most critical thing here, it's feedback from the customers, end users, basically, that will enable improvement in your products. That will be very key. And also, the connecting or having these products being IoT enabled, that will help you also get a lot of data that will help in your research team working on it. So we're proud to say that about 5% of our profit is usually dedicated for research applications. So when we get data from our products that are connected, of course, being IoT enabled, you can connect on them from anywhere. And what that helps you to do is you have a lot of data. Getting data is one thing, and your ability to use the data to make informed decisions and to help you to improve your product is a different ballgame. But I think at Schneider Electric, we do a lot with the data we get back and the feedbacks from most of our customers. I've already spoken about the use of the checks or quality management systems with the vendor or the suppliers. Basically, putting a control with the raw materials to ensure that your products out there do not have defects and that you don't have a lot of return. It's usually much more expensive to fix when the products are already launched than when you at the manufacturing stage, or probably before manufacturing at the design stage. If you're able to dictate or see some of these challenges, it's usually cheaper at that rate. Then the final thing would be training of users, training of integrators, training of partners to pass the knowledge and to support them in ensuring that the systems deployed to the field are actually properly deployed. So it's one thing to have a good product, and it's another thing to install it wrongly. And when it's wrongly installed, then we begin to have a lot of negative feedbacks in the market. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Obina. All right, then I would like to call upon Mr. Femi, and it's nice to have like a national level feedback or insight on this subject. Femi, what are some of the challenges faced by Nigeria to ensure high quality technologies and standards that you see in your experience for sustainable energy infrastructure? And how does REA address this problem?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I would answer that question from a slightly different angle by telling our story as REA. We started with a program called NEP, Nigerian Electrification Project, and at the time, it was for those who dared to be crazy. And we dared to be crazy, and we went on with it. At the time, there were issues around funding, technical expertise, local manufacturing, and infrastructure planning generally. I say we dared to be crazy because we literally had none of this. But we kept on going and we kept on moving. We started from the Energizing Education Program, the EEP-1. It has its ups and downs, but that led us to the Nigerian Electrification Project. Now, that project was able to answer the question of funding. And then the new issue now became how do we apply this funding to ensure that we're able to catalyze the market the right way. I'm happy to say that we have done exceedingly well in doing that. I know of Nigerian developers who have set up assembly plants through that because one of the issues is also local manufacturing. I know of hundreds of students from universities who have been trained in renewable energy through our programs because part of the issues are the skills required in this industry. I know 153 mini grids in communities. I know of 1 million plus solar home systems deployed. And I know I'm answering this in the other way around, but just to say that the challenges remain, right? And we won't be in a job if there are no challenges. But in the DARES program, what we want to try and do is to say that in the NEP program, we worked with those who were willing. So whoever was willing to get on that crazy boat of crazy people who dared, to move on in that direction. Now it's a situation of how do we scale? How do we do everything on utility scale? That presents to us different types of issues on its own. And in doing that, we realize also that as a government, policy-wise, are we short of any policy? The question is no. Are we short of implementation? The question is yes, in certain degrees. Are we short of enforcement? The question is yes. On our part, are we also monitoring and evaluating the right way, ensuring that the right standards are deployed into these communities? Are we sharing knowledge with the communities enough for them to know when a low-grade panel is installed or a system that is even below par is installed? Because we can't be everywhere, but we need to ensure that the knowledge is passed across from bottom up. I know in this space also, even as we try and go to scale, we're looking at things like the productive use of energy. So part of the challenges I see also is, are the developers daring enough? Are they looking to take enough risk? Are they looking to, answer this question for the entire value chain? Don't want to go so deep into it, but in answering that question, I hope I have pointed out a few of the issues and a few of how we've been able to achieve that. Thank you.
A quick follow-up then, a status quo check. You mentioned local manufacturing was a challenge. What is the status now? Do you think it's still, do you consider, is REA considering local manufacturing as still a challenge? If so, are there any steps towards it, towards
Yes.
tackling it? Yes.
Yes, yes. So we are collaborating with various people who are willing to begin assembly plants. There are a number of solar panel assembly plants springing up. I think last week or last month, there was a lithium factory that came up in Nasarawa State. So as a government, as an agency, we're looking to support as much as possible, even in tax waivers, and I know the government is looking into various incentives to ensure that we have the enabling environment for manufacturers.
Are those policy initiatives or incentives existing, or you're calling for them?
So believe me, as I said earlier, there are enough policies that you...
All right, in that
So
case...
it's taking advantage and the knowledge sharing and sensitization about these policies, really.
Indeed, and thanks. And I can take the advantage of using the stage as calling to the audience to consider this as an opportunity. And if you're considering Nigeria as one of your base of operation or business points, please do consider. And I will take you up on your word on the fact that there are available incentives and the red tape are not too aggressive that others cannot manage. Thank you so much, Femi. And I would come back to you with another question. I do have that. Considering the specific environmental conditions in Nigeria, for example, high temperatures, dust, and humidity, speaking of which, guys, please stay hydrated, drink water. How do manufacturing standards ensure the durability and performance of renewable energy technologies like the solar panels or wind turbines in the country? What do you think about that, please?
What I think about that question is Nigeria is unique in itself in terms of it's the high temperatures, it's the dust, and it's the humidity as well. So when it comes to solar panels, we're looking at the type of material that's been used in assembly, ensuring that the ingress protection ratings are high in order to cope with the temperatures. For the wind turbines, I think we're looking at corrosion-resistant material in building those turbines. High temperature operations also would mean that you have manufacturers design them to function efficiently even in a hot climate like Nigeria. And also we have the sand erosion protection for areas in the Sahel that have a lot of dust and a lot of those particles in the air. I think largely what it would boil down to is the reputation of the manufacturer and the OEMs. Because for reputable OEMs, you are able to simulate any type of weather, any type of condition for your material, for your equipment. So I think it's essentially ensuring that we deal with OEMs, manufacturers who have a name to protect and are not just dishing out just anything into the market. I think that's the key here across the board.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we can clap. No shy. All right. So, dear audience, are we still awake? Louder claps, let's say. Very nice. Now we will enter the moderated section where we can also take questions from the audience. So I hope that you are not sleeping and you have your questions ready to shoot at our panelist. So maybe giving the opportunity first to the audience. Raise your hand, break the ice, ask your question, and please point the speaker you are asking your question to. It's always the first person. It takes one person to raise the hand and then the question just floods. I know that. Yeah, Constance. Can we take a mic there?
Thank you so much, Deepak. Constance van Zeydam from the Kingdom of Eswatini. I'd want to find out from Snyder. They mentioned that they've got various standards that they are using. I'd like to know if there is some standard that they are implementing for the environment and social governance part of things. for the energy value chain? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello. Okay. Thank you for that question. So, of course, at Schneider Electric, so we, in every of our process and manufacturing, all of our products, of course, we consider and we deploy the ISO 14001, which is exactly your question. And we adopt that and we also implement it in all of our manufacturing processes. We, of course, consider the environment in everything that we do. And that also says a lot with our color being green and also all that we preach about sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Nice. The gentleman over there. Sir. The one behind you, sorry. He raised his hands first.
Oh,
I'll come to you next. The one behind you, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Muazu Musa from Sokoto Energy Research Center. My question actually goes to Stefemi Arena. It seems so far in Nigeria, when it comes to this issue of energizing or provision of electricity, emphasis has so far been on solar photovoltaic aspect of solar energy. And other aspects of renewable energy seems to be not gaining much attention or neglected, such as wind. Can I know the reason for that, please? Thank you very much.
Was the question clear? Okay.
No. So how do we diversify, essentially?
Yeah, other sources.
Okay.
But so far, the emphasis has been on solar photovoltaics. So why are other sources suffering neglect? Thank you very much.
I think one major issue or one major point to be made there is the issue of skill and ease of deployment in very rural areas, location specific, and also, yeah, I think mainly location specific. What kind of technologies can you deploy in these areas in a very quick manner to ensure that we get the rate of energy access that we have signed up to, essentially? It's going to be a mix of different type of sources of energy, different type of technologies. States are coming on board now to ensure that we see that mix and diversification in ensuring energy access. But best rest assured that we are looking into all sources of energy, location specific, but we need to ensure also that we looking at cost of deployment, right? And ensuring that it's affordable to whoever we're deploying to. The only way we would sustain these systems is if the people are able to afford it. They need to pay something for it to be sustained. If we continue on the path of free power and all of that, we've all seen where that has led us. So we continue to evolve, we continue to think through it as we go to these very difficult areas to deploy and deploy at scale. I hope I've answered that question. So no source is left behind.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The gentleman in front,
Yeah.
yes, please.
All right.
Introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kanai Magwai. I work with Solar. So first, I want to appreciate the REA. I think they've been doing an amazing job in terms of how far they've helped the Nigerian energy space to grow. And I've been following over the years, and I've seen how the incentives and policies they've done has kind of like opened the market for new players and people to come in. So kudos to the REA on that. So my question basically is around the DS program coming up and stuff. So the question would be, are there going to be any kind of change in the regulation when you compare it to what has been done previously in terms of the NEP and the previous grants, PBG and other stuff that have happened in the past? And Are there going to be any surprises, or is this still going to be like, what it's like, what we've seen in the past, basically? Yeah, thank you.
Who are you pointing your question to, please?
Yeah, to the REA, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next question can come to other speakers, please. Equal opportunities. Femi.
So yes, for sure, you would see a lot of what you've seen before in the NEP and more. As you know, and as I mentioned before, the NEP was a success in itself. But as we start to evolve into the phase of DARES, we need to put sustainability at the fore of everything that we're doing. I mentioned earlier that at the beginning of this journey, we had to work with whoever was willing. But right now, we have to work with the trusted if we're going to go at scale. So obviously, that also brings up a lot of, new eligibility criteria that would have to evolve also. But be rest assured that nothing is going to be done to stifle the market. The DARES fund is a catalytic grant in itself. So we need to look at it that way and ensure that whatever we're applying has a multiplier effect in the ecosystem that we're trying to build. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman over here, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Fola Akinola, the Managing Director of Femadec Energy.
Who you have the question for? Sorry.
What do
Which panelist do you have the question for?
I throw it open. Anybody can take it. Yeah.
Okay. Please.
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is, what is your plan for solar waste, PV waste after some time? If you have a plan, I would like to know. If you don't have one, will you support investment in a recycling and stuff like that? Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to take the question, please? Someone who hasn't taken yet?
So let me
Thank
take
you.
that. So in terms of waste, of course, we have most of the materials that currently is being deployed. The solar panels, they have their lifespan, and every other product also. So we see today that a lot of these products are just being thrown, and you see piles and heaps of some of these broken panels littered all around. So there has to be an intentional process of recycling, because all of the components are actually recyclable. So there's really nothing in place now, speaking from what I know today. But I know that maybe Femi or any other person on the panel could say what the plans with respect to the government, what they are doing in terms of the recycling program. But I know that all of these, in terms of disposing them, even including the batteries, there should be a way to manage them to avoid impacting the environment. For instance, if we take the solar panel, if you bring it down, the metal frame can be recycled, can be taken off and used into something different. Also the glass, there's a glass component of it, which can also be recycled. And then we have the main frame, which of course is also recyclable. And all of these can be crushed and separated into various components. And of course, majorly, that is the silicon that's there. So recycling is the way to go. But in terms of policies and what the government is doing, I may not be in the right position to answer to that. I don't know if that helps. Thank you.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
Thank you.
The REA people are here. We need to know, is there a plan? If there's none, will you support investment in recycling? I know most of this is recycled. We can recycle them. But what is the policy in place? What is the plan going forward? Later, some of the disadvantages of a solar panel is these environmental issues. And that is why other renewables like water, wind are being considered ahead in some places. So I think we need to have a policy in place that addresses environmental issues. We should have something in place.
Yes, for the sake of not going too in depth, all the developers who have worked with NEP know of the extensive environmental and social plan that they have to submit with their application. So this is taken very seriously by the REA and by the banks who fund these programs. And even in the DARES program is one of the things that, just as you said earlier, what are the new things to expect? So there will be new environmental safeguards to comply with. As we evolve, we continue to evolve with those policies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. I have a question then directed to Ms. Hauwa from International Hydropower Association. Hauwa, what do you think should be the role of industry associations like yours, like ours, like Alliance for Rural Electrification, in ensuring the quality infrastructure and adoption of standards? What then in national and international associations can do about it?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think people like your association can help promote our standard. Like the Hydropower Sustainability Standard really does care about, like I said earlier, healthy ecosystems, resilient infrastructure. So we are very open to having collaborations with organizations to promote the standard that it should be adopted in all hydropower projects. And I wanted to address a question earlier.
Please.
The person that spoke about solar. I wanted to say that in the renewable space, hydro is really abundant. And we really need to realize that there's so much potential for hydro in Africa. And one of the things we're trying to achieve, because another part of my job is I work with the largest hydropower in West Africa, which is Mainstream Energy Solutions. And we are trying to promote regional connectivity. So if like with the West Africa power pools, like all the regions in Africa, when we come together, we kind of promote that there's hydropower, and we need to address stuff like grid stability, transmission lines.
Right.
Yeah. So with renewables, I really think we need to know that it's not just solar that's available, but there's so much hydro, and the two, they work together. They can be integrated. And we were lucky to be in Indonesia last year where there was floating solar, and it wasn't even connected to the grid. But like in Africa now, what I would really advocate is that adopted standards across the regions, and also like let's have collaborative regional activities together to promote renewable energy. It can be solar, hydro, all of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to also take 2 cents from Alistair and then Chris on the same subject, because Alistair Rice is a part of GWEC as well as ARE. What do you think national and international associations like us can do more to intervene?
I think that's as much to do with sharing of information, because the industry associations work across a range of geographies and application sectors. So therefore bringing that experience into particular countries that are at a different stage of introducing the renewable energy technologies, I think is very important. You know, we're a global manufacturer, so we're bringing knowledge from, so let's say in Africa, our successes in Egypt, and then sharing that information with South Africa and now Nigeria and other markets. So I think it's not just about standards. I think it's also about sharing of information and giving that information freely.
Right.
So it's the other thing that I would say the industry associations have is independence. You're not here commercially active in promoting a particular product or a particular technology, perhaps slightly different with the hydro systems, but it's nice to hear they're talking about floating solar, because we're seeing that being adopted in many water courses now across the world. But I think it's just sharing that information and knowledge and experience base so that it also mitigates risk when people are adopting new technologies. I come back to the question earlier on about wind. I would say that solar is the easiest technology to deploy, and therefore it tends to be the first deployed. It's only when you've maximized out your solar and you're looking to then produce as much as you can, that you're then looking at the alternative technologies such as wind, such as hydro, and that's when you're really looking to maximize your production. The other thing that you also have to understand is that for many of these technologies, they're not comparing apples with apples. You know, when you take a wind turbine, it might be rated at, let's say, 10 kilowatts. 10 kilowatts of solar will produce much less power on an annual electricity production basis. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And again, sharing that experience, I think, is something that fundamentally the industry associations can do very well as the honest brokers of the business sector.
For sure, very important, and I can assure you that ARE is on top of it, and with more than 34,000 unique followers, I would say, we are keeping up to the pace by informing and also aggregating our united, let's say, pressure group that we have created over the last 18 years of experience that we have been established since. We are doing that, and rest assured we will keep doing that. Thank you. I would ask the same question to Chris and take your insights, please.
What did you say at the end? Take your...
What do you think the national and international associations like us can contribute more to intervene in when it comes to quality assurance in decentralized renewable energy?
So I think I would maybe take this in a slightly different direction just to try and keep it interesting again. I think a lot of the time, it's not how can we meet a minimum standard, it's how can we have alignment to go beyond standards. And I think that comes to best practice. I think you guys have largely touched on it. How can we share best practice, not just operationally, but with product development? So how can we take ways of providing energy solutions, and whether it's the wiring in the homes of private individuals, how can we create systems which are less prone to failure, systems which are less prone to the kind of abuses or damage that these systems would typically have? So instead of just having the cheapest stuff, how can we find stuff that is cheap but actually really good? And actually better than what a standard might be, or tangentially from a standard. Sure, it meets the standard, but also you can plug it in really easily like this. And how can we facilitate the deployment of equipment such as that by perhaps the industry bodies looking and saying, hey, what we've realized is that, I'm making it up, but 80% of trips on breakers are caused by poor wiring of this type of IEC socket. So we've developed a better one that doesn't actually have this problem and doesn't wiggle loose because it uses a snap rather than a screw or something like this. So I think that could be quite interesting. And I think a lot of it for me is about alignment. How do we align our customers and our suppliers? And I think, again, you can play a role in that. I don't know how, but you give it a go.
Right. Thank you. And that was brilliant, actually, to go beyond what is there with standardization and also enforcement works and also local production. So your answer kind of triggered the same questions that I was about to ask Alistair about localization, or what you mentioned about local production versus compliance. Now, if we have to go with international standards, we have to raise the bar super high, which is sometimes geographically and economically not possible, which is why we have to rely on localization or local production. When we are going for local production, how do we comply with the compliance standards then? What do we do? What are your inputs on that, Alistair?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And we're seeing a lot of countries around the world creating policies on in-country value-added processes, which is driving the localization process. We're also seeing demographics, meaning that we need to create localized employment. And when you're a manufacturer, you need to really take that into consideration when you're looking both at the markets you want to enter, but also how do you wish to enter those. So when we've done this in the past, we've looked at tiering the components. One of the biggest problems we face in Africa is the lack of a supply chain that's created domestically within any country in Africa. Okay. There are very few with a manufacturing supply chain. Even though we've got a huge population base, if you compare that to India, it's a unified country, but within India, we have a big supply chain, which we don't really see within the African continent. And that's something that we really need to consider. There are certain things when you're looking at our type of projects that can be localized relatively easily. They can create added value in terms of towers. We don't supply towers anymore from Europe manufacturing. We provide a design. We'll then come back to the supply chain. We'll look at the companies in terms of quality and what they can manufacture, and then we'll support them in terms of validation of their manufacturing processes. And then we'll actually be their client, and we'll integrate that into the overall project. And I think when you look at those, the evolution of industry over a period of time, and I'm sorry to say this as an old man, so when I went to the Middle East to live, I was 27 years old, and everything was imported. Now, 30 odd years later, everything is localized, everything is manufactured. So there may be, and even now, intellectual property is generated there. So the companies evolve over a period. It may take 1 or 2 generations, and as long as the policy documents are there that Femi referred to, then you can see an evolutionary process whereby we can comply to international standards, but we can localize in terms of manufacturing, value creation, employment, and we take the industry forward on that basis. Okay.
Very, very nicely put, I would say. I have one last point, actually, last question, but before that, I would like to acknowledge this diversity of the panel. I will ask this question and then I can come to you, please. We have private sector, we have public sector, we have non-governmental organization, we have solar, we have hydro, we have wind, all represented perfectly in this panel, and how diverse this is. I think this is by far the best panel, and I would like to have a round of applause for that. And not to forget energy storage as well, which is power components. So 3 cheers. Okay, my question goes to the cross-cooperation, actually. How private sector and public sector can work together in order to ensure this quality assurance, which is in a broader, let's say, sense of achievement, can achieve energy access, energy transition, pretty much all the goals that we have under SDG 7. I will take answers from all of you, 2 sentences, not, let's say, be brief, and then we can ask some questions, take some questions from audience. Let's go with this order. Alistair, would you like to go first?
Give me the difficult one first. Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, I mean, our experience in terms of government sector is that it does tend to be lacking in dynamism. So it lacks a dynamic function. It's quite conservative. So where we are looking to support government sectors is in instigating, for example, demonstration units or pilot study programs whereby and I know I'm doing more than 2 sentences, but that we can mitigate risk. And I think the private sector can mitigate the public sector's risk, and that's something that we can do together on a joint basis.
Sounds very cool what you've been doing as well. So in terms of private sector to public sector, I'm very impressed with what I hear. I like crazy guys who are willing to do new stuff. Let's get a coffee afterwards and have a chat, and then we'll have some collaboration. That will do for me.
You know, with that answer, at least my purpose of coming to Nigeria is fulfilled. Femi, over to you.
Yeah, so in answering, I think I'll just speak to collaboration. I think, yes, you may be used to government organizations who are quite conservative, but please visit the REA when you have a chance. And yeah, you'd change your perception of what that is. But on a more serious note, I think I'll take just a minute to say, at the REA, what we're trying to do is to ensure that across the value chain, there is synergy and there's cohesion. And I'll just explain just one thing why. We've had a new Electricity Act in Nigeria at the moment. And one of the things we're trying to ensure is that as the states have more powers now to regulate what happens along the value chain, in the areas where we are focused on as REA, we want to ensure that the mini-grid standards, for example, are not different from state to state, and thereby causing chaos in the market. So we're going ahead, thinking ahead, 10 steps, 20 steps ahead to ensure that the enabling environment remains there for the private sector. And on the private sector end, I would just like to implore them also to take more risk. Like the MD said earlier on, they need to take more risk. They need to think of scale. They need to improve their corporate governance. They need to ensure that, when they're thinking across the entire value chain. Service delivery is very important. In any sector that you're going into, increasing the commercial viability of your project. I think with that, we'll be able to go the long haul in that. And finally, is to say, when it comes to manufacturing, and I didn't want to go into this because I might just stir up a storm, what are the international standards and how do we define the standards? Africa has the biggest market when it comes to energy access. So are we defining the standards based off of the conditions of Africa and the unique situation that we find ourselves here? Or are we trying to force global standards on us in Africa? I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So, from all the speakers, I think the common word here is collaboration. And for us at Schneider Electric also, we want to collaborate with the public sector, the government. How do we want to do this is basically working with institutions like the universities and some technical institutions. So we enable didactic workbenches and try to transfer skills, try to teach them. So when we catch them young, and then all of the standards, all of the experience, all of the knowledge, we try to pass all of these skills and this knowledge. And that also could motivate them into going further to see how they can do things for themselves. That's basically what I would say we do. And in addition, like I did say, our route to market is more of, let's say, channels and partners, local partners. And we try to empower them. What we do is basically prepare type-tested equipment that meets global standards and bring them as components down. And they start with coupling, start with building those locally. They're already type-tested, but if you follow the process, we define standard processes and procedures to couple these components. And when you're able to couple them, then we are sure of safety. We are sure that the standards meets the global one. And in terms of manufacturing, of course, in as much as these global standards are applied, you also consider unique and specific situations to various countries, and you apply that. It's not the same across, let's say, the entire continent of Africa. What you have here in Nigeria in terms of altitude may not be exactly what you have in Kenya. Of course, it's not exactly what you have in Kenya. It's not what you have in South Africa. And when you're manufacturing, when you're deploying equipment, all of this has to come into consideration. For us, it's collaboration, it's transfer of skills, transfer of knowledge, and support to ensure that these skills are left local. Thank you.
So both the private sector and both the private and the public sector all have one goal in the energy world, that's universal energy access for all. And I would like to say that for mainstream energy, IHA and the HSA, which is talking about the standards, we literally had an event last week, which was literally a collaboration with people coming all over the world from 70 countries and trying to advocate for the standard for hydropower development and investments. So such collaborations are really important in order to move forward the renewable energy sector, like for all renewables, not just hydro. For all renewables, all these parties coming together really makes an impact, and it really moves the investments forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear speakers, for providing your insights on the cooperation, which is an important aspect. Femi, you got me off guard. I am not usually on a panel when I moderate. I'm lack of answers, but I was thinking. It got me thinking. What can I say about the fact that okay, if the standardization, the quality assurance, the policies are being made, are being forced, or are being created, keeping the local conditions in mind. I think the answer must be the standardizations of standardization, so that we can think of all the states taking into consideration all the conditions which are there, and then adapting to the fact which is more suitable for the local instead of enforcing something which comes from abroad. But yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks for raising it, and I hope that we can use the stage of EAIF to send the message out that it is being taken care of. 3 minutes into the closing, I would like to bring my 2 cents. And dear audience, those of you who couldn't ask the questions, please make use of the matchmaking, which is right outside. You can meet the speakers within a couple of mouse clicks. You will be able to set up one-on-one meetings with them. Of course, more to be announced. Please make use of the opportunities that we are providing here at EAIF. All right, my 2 cents. Quality assurance, super important in our sector when we are talking about energy access with decentralized renewable energy. For me, quality assurance means trust. Without the trust, nothing works, including the projects that we do. Imagine with, let's say, having a CapEx funding access, we have established a project in a remote area, and let's say due to certain conditions or certain circumstances, we use, let's say, the products or the equipments which are, let's say, not very well, let's say, of good quality. So let's say that the quality assurance was not ensured. When when the system breaks down and there is no one to troubleshoot, it is the locals who suffer. It is the local who have no electricity, and it's the local in the end who are going backwards from where they started. To tackle this lack of trust, we need to say no to counterfeit products, and we need to ensure the quality, localization, which is one of the keywords that we take out from this panel. Localization, keeping all the standards and keeping all the quality in check. So maybe I can coin a word, glocalization, which can work here as well. And yeah, as soon as we adapt these parameters, we will be successful. And lastly, everyone pretty much agreed with the fact cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. This must be the mantra. And with that, I would like to conclude this session today. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. And we can have a round of applause. Okay, now I close my laptop, and I would like to invite the helm of affairs, the CEO of Alliance for Rural Electrification, Mr. David Lecoq, on stage to have the closing ceremony checked. Mr. David, please, would you do the honors of coming to the stage?
All right. Thank you very much, dear panelists, for your contributions. Good to see also several of you on stage. Well, my closing ceremony is very short. Big thank you for your participation today. I think we've had a very intensive day. At least I can feel it already on day one. So that's both a good and a terrible sign. And so therefore, I would just now like to close formally today's track 1 session, invite you to go to the B2B matchmaking. So for those of you who don't know, there is the desk outside for arranging 20-minute bilateral meetings. As you know, they start in about 10 minutes, so you are still well on time to grab something to drink and then head into those meetings. If you, again, can't make it, please remember to cancel your appointment so nobody waits in vain. After all the policy chats, after all the business meetings, at 6:30, we cordially invite all of you for a reception by the pool, so just downstairs outside. So that's my closing. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. For those that want to see the photo from the exhibition, so that have won the contest that I mentioned this morning, they're just across the exhibition room. So all those winning photos you see from the Renewables for Impact campaign, you can just see them now. They've been put up. Thank you.